More than a year ago, when I went to a conference of traditional Catholics, I concluded that the Russians had penetrated the traditional Catholics. The speakers and members of the audience were repeating and responding to Russian disinformation talking points. And also, too, what I saw was a very virulent anti American sense about this group and about traditional Catholics, especially as time went on. I realized that the Russians had penetrated traditional Catholics at that time. And what I have since found out is that this belief has been confirmed. Um, Ryan Mauro is a national security analyst. He's very highly respected. He did a number of shows on Candace Owens, who he says is engaged in information operations. I completely agree with that. I called out Candace Owens on X Twitter more than 2 years ago, and I was immediately attacked by the traditional Catholics um, and by the bots and the trolls. And what Ryan Mauro is saying is that the traditional Catholics have been co opted, been penetrated by the Russians. And they are now, the traditional Catholics are now repeating Russian talking points, and certain other themes are being promoted or advanced by the Russians. Now, the way the Russians work online, they have this information operations that's ongoing. They have bots, they have trolls that go out there and try to encourage or amplify certain voices, certain comments, certain themes. And if you say certain things they don't like, then they come and they attack you. And when they attack you online, these fake accounts, and sometimes they're real accounts of people who are just simply pushing the Russian line, when they attack you, you know you're over the target. You can take a look at the comments through all of my different videos for the last year and a half plus, and you'll see the attacks. They've been just consistent because they know that I've figured it out and they don't like what I'm saying. And this is a form of censorship. They're trying to censor me, they're trying to shut me up. I had one of my followers once contacted me once and he said, well, um, you seem to be still on the air. I said, absolutely. I said, I'm going to stay on the air. I said, they know that I know. The Russians know that I know, that I have figured out their game. And their game is to promote certain people who promote certain narratives, false narratives. And as I look around, I mean, we have been inundated by false narratives for a very, very long time. And one of these false narratives is, well, that the West is declining. That's balderdash, as the British might say. Another one is that modernity is destroying societies and people have lost their identity. That's total crap. I read the New York Times opinion piece by Douthé, who interviewed Rod Dreher, came out a few days ago, and I don't know what kind of world these guys are talking about. I don't live in it. My friends don't live in it. My associates and colleagues don't live in this world that they describe. So either this is a narrative which is false, or they're talking from their own sicknesses or their own delusions, and they're presenting something as fact, as truth, when it is not. So modernity, the fall of the West, and then there's a lot of false narratives about the Catholic Church. One is that Vatican II was an illegitimate conference, that Vatican II has harmed the church, things like that. But there are more, there are a lot more false narratives, like the Jews are responsible for one thing or another, the Freemasons are responsible for everything. These are narratives that the Russians want to encourage and amplify, because what these things do is they divide people and they keep us from focusing on what's going on. and they keep us from doing what we should do, which is to build bridges of friendship and oppose this evil, these lies that the Russians and their allies are putting out there. Now the Russians have got help from the tech bros and various different oligarchs and moguls, but the Russians have got state power behind this, so they're able to do a lot of things that private parties are not able to do. So I want to talk today about somebody who just simply, as far as I can tell, just came out of nowhere, and to highlight what I am saying. It's going to highlight these narratives that the Russians want promoted to divide the church, to cause division in civil society in America. This individual is coming. He came out of nowhere. If you read his short little blurb he has on himself, it says he's studying Thomistic philosophy. He was a Protestant. His name's Alexander Poe. And I stumbled upon him the other day. He had, when I first came upon him, I think he had around 600 maybe subscribers, around that, maybe a little bit less. Well, in about 8 to 12 weeks, his subscribership went up to over 12,000 now. Okay, that's really fast. And at the same time, some of his older videos go back 8, 9, 10 months. They talk about the church, ecclesiology, a little bit of philosophy. It's pretty dry stuff. You get anywhere from around 200, maybe 800 viewers. Well, now he's getting viewers of up to 50,000 on his shows. And so, what's he talking about? Well, and this is in a space of about 6 to 9 months. Okay, this is a dramatic increase of viewership of this guy who says he's 27 years old, and he's a convert to Catholicism, and he's studying Thomistic philosophy. So what's going on here? What's going on with him is what's going on with a lot of other influencers out there, and I'm going to talk about it. When he started platforming people like E. Michael Jones and Theo Howard and Stephen Cox, that's when his viewership started picking up. Okay, because these guys are putting out messages, they're putting out narratives that divide the church and divide civil society. Now they say something's wrong with Vatican II. They say Jews are the problem. Freemasonry is the problem. It's infiltrated the Vatican. And these are the stories they put out there to cause people to discredit their own church, to divide their own church. Well, the Russians want that. The Russians don't like the Vatican. And they certainly don't like this Vatican under Leo XIV. And the oligarchs and the plutocrats and the MAGA Catholics certainly don't like this Vatican either. So they want somebody who's going to go out there and discredit it. So you discredit the Vatican, you discredit the church, saying, well, it's infiltrated by Freemasons. Well, it's controlled by Jews. And, this is just nonsense. And Vatican II gets attacked too, of course. Vatican II gets discredited as a new religion. And all of that is important for the tyrants so that they can remove this resistance to their accumulating absolute power, because the Vatican basically says you've got to care about the person, and the best way to care about the person is to put power to the purposes of helping the person. That's what Magnificus Humanitas was about. Okay, that's what that encyclical was about. It was about right ordering power. Well, the Russians and the oligarchs don't want a right order of power. They want it for them. Okay, so they have to discredit the Vatican. They have to divide the church. They have to say Vatican II is bad. Vatican II, if you look at Vatican II, and I cannot speak about liturgy or ecclesiology, but what I can talk about is Gaudium et Spes and Dignitatis Humanae. And when you look at those documents, what the Vatican is doing, as other popes have for years before them, is stress the importance of the natural law to guide what we do as in the world, and to guide what we do as peoples of the world, guide what we do as members of humanity, members of society. This is what you are supposed to take away from those documents. And this is good. It's supposed to be cooperation, collaboration towards these issues and to bring peace and order. And the emphasis, again, is the person, and you want to bring peace. You want to have the rule of law. And of course, you want to recognize there's a community of nations. So what you notice here with little Poe is you've got his viewership just starts to skyrocket up over 6 months. Um, he had a Father Maudsley that was on, and then that got taken down. But he had tens of thousands of views on this thing in a very short period. And of course, Maudsley attacks the Jews. He says the church is corrupt, and this is a recurring theme that Poe has taken. And his latest video is attacking Pope Saint John Paul II. Well, he's got 50,000 views on this. Now, whether he's hyped it or someone else hyped it, but he's got 50,000 views on this. And this is from a guy who went from about 500 people, 200, 300, 400, 800 people watching his shows, to 50,000 in a matter of a couple of days. How does that happen? That's not organic. Well, let me tell you how it happens. You have somebody who wants to emphasize or amplify your message. That's how that happens. And the Russians can do that. Okay? They have the ability to do that with their trolls and bots and fake accounts and manipulation of the algorithms and so on and so forth. Well, do you think the Russians like Pope St. John Paul II? No, they don't. Because Pope St. John Paul II brought down the Soviet Empire, and the Soviet Empire was the Russian Empire by another term, another view. And Pope St. John Paul II is highly revered among Catholics. So they have to destroy this icon to weaken the church. And Alexander Poe is helping them do it. Now, I don't know what Alexander Poe knows. If he knows that he's actually helping the Russians, is he doing it on purpose? He might be. But you have to understand that when you attack John Paul II, the Russians like that. When you attack Jews and create division in society by attacking Protestants or some other group, the Russians like that because they've got a history of dividing people and emphasizing and amplifying those divisions. Okay? And they do it along religious lines and along sectarian and ethnic lines. I've studied this. And you can find this. You can Google this and you'll find it. Okay, there was a study by the State Department saying anti-Semitism is a Russian tool. They use it to divide people. Putin is wreaking havoc in the Baltics, and he has since 2007 by pitting the nationalities against each other. He did that in the Donbass and in Luhansk. And then he said, whoa, look, the Russians are being hurt. Oh, I got to go to war. And he starts an illegal and immoral war. He did this in Azerbaijan. He did this in Chechnya. He did this everywhere. This is what the Russian playbook is. They divide people by religious and ethnic grounds. So if you're out there promoting these messages, they're going to promote you. Okay? So that's what we got. So if you look around, there are a lot of really good sources here. Jay in Kiev is on X, and he had a post from January 23rd, 2026, where he talks about the Natalie and Clayton Morris YouTube site Redacted. Their viewership went up dramatically after they started pushing Russian talking points about the war in Ukraine. You can find it. Jay in Kiev, January 23rd, 2026. It's got it there. He's got mention of it. There is Vatnik Soup, which I've spoken about before. It's Pekka Kalianiemi from a 1 June 26 post. He talks about Candace Owens in Russia. And he said within an hour of her posting her first post with photos from Russia, she had 153,000 views within an hour, 1,000 shares, 9,000 likes within an hour. That's incredible. Okay. And then that was the same, he said, or even greater when Tucker interviewed Putin and then when Tucker visited Orban's Hungary and met with Orban. You see this sudden spike in views and sudden spike in viewership. Andrew Brookestand talks about the Russian bots in a June 26 tweet. He says after Laura Loomer figured out that Candace Owens is a Russian asset, is promoting Russian disinformation, Loomer engagements went down 28%. Okay, they went down on an average 28%. That means, okay, so that means likes, reposts, stuff like that. That means it could have gone down a lot more with some posts. So, I mean, this is real. There was a story from a year ago, July 21st, 2025, uh, and that uh, it talks about YouTube wiping out thousands of um, propaganda channels linked to uh, Russia, and Iran. And that is part of their Google threat analysis that Google does. They see who's putting these fake accounts out there to drive up traffic, and so they do something about it, or at least they did as of July of last year, July of 2025. But what you got here is you've got Russia emphasizing certain messages. And they promote it with the traffic, they promote it with subscribers, they promote it with likes, they promote it with engagements. That's what they do. And I don't know, but if what Alexander Poe knows, but definitely at this point we can say he's a Russian asset because he is promoting these Russian talking points, which is um, Jews are bad, Freemasons are bad, Pope Saint John Paul II is bad, uh, Vatican II is bad, and so on and so forth. You can look at his page and you can see it. So that's all I've got for now. But it's a very sad state of affairs. When you go down that road that he and many other people go down, you really have a very hard life because what you do is you build up a lot of resentment, a lot of suspicion rather in people, and you play to fear and anger, and you're sowing some very bad fruit, um, which is going to at some point um, come back and become apparent. So this is what the Russians are doing, and I believe their latest asset here is young Alexander. Thank you.